we've seen over the last 2 days, what resilience is, what it means, how can we create more safety for us, emotional safety. And we've also seen how the nervous system at times can take longer to return to safety, even when a situation says over. So we'll go further on today on this theme, on this module about resilience, about growth. And we look at how the mind, from the stories that it creates, can either help us or keep us stuck. And how the meaning that we give our experiences can influence how fast um, we heal. So while events can shape us, the stories we build around those events can shape us even more. And it can be really helpful, therefore, to learn to examine the story and not just relive the experience. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And hopefully, by the end of the first session, we'll be able to um, look at events that have taken shape in our lives differently, what they mean to us, and how we can work with them to restore ourselves to balance. And yeah, with that, I welcome you to today's session as an arrival practice. I'd just like you to, take a couple of minutes to sit comfortably and come in a position where you can ground yourself. And you could either, if you have access to a window, look outside or just close your eyes and imagine a wide blue sky. And now imagine your thoughts are clouds that are moving across the sky. Thoughts are like clouds moving across the sky. Some are dark, some are light, some move quickly, some seem to stay longer. Now, the sky is doing nothing really to either keep the clouds or chase the clouds away. It's not clingy. It's not. Um, it's not upset with the clouds. It's just letting the clouds pass by. So it simply allows them to come and go. And, if we think of each sort as, say, a cloud or each belief as a cloud, now some difficult thoughts can stay with us for years. And if there's one particular thought, maybe that stayed with you for years, it, it could be because we think that this thought is the whole sky instead of one passing cloud. So, can we treat all our thoughts the same things that pass through the sky and that move by? Watching your thoughts come and go by in the mind. And then I'd like you to bring to mind, say, a difficult event that still affects you today. Now, what story have you told yourself about what happened? What story have you told yourself about what happened? And this one is just a yes or a no question. If someone else had lived through the exact same event, would they necessarily tell the same story? Has there ever been a time when your understanding of an experience changed after some time? Has there ever been a time when your understanding of an experience changed, maybe years later? And the last, just to think about, is what if our suffering is not only about what happened, but also about what we've come to believe about what happened? And that's just to sort of reflect on, we are not attaching ourselves to any story, any event. And with that, setting an intention for today, for the session, for yourself, for how you want today as a day to look like, how do you want to be. And then slowly and gently opening your eyes. And today we are talking about the story that we tell ourselves after something has happened and how we create that story, we form that narrative, can help us or keep us stuck. And how for recovery, from something, from a setback, a story can be a very powerful tool to come back to ourselves, uh, to act as a catalyst for growth. And that's what our intention is for today. That's what we're trying to learn, to discover, to explore. Now we know that two people can live the exact same event and form different stories about the event. So say there's a loss of a job, and one person could think I'm a failure, but the other could think that, yeah, this is painful, it's difficult, but I've been thinking about changing my career for a while now, and perhaps this is an opportunity to rethink my life, my career. The emotional journeys in both cases can be very different, though the event could be identical, because we as human beings, we are not responding only to events, we respond to what those events mean to us. And in psychology, we call it cognitive appraisal. It's the way we interpret and evaluate what happens to us. And our interpretation influences our emotional response as much as the event itself. And why it links to resilience is that, when we say we can be more resilient, or there's someone who's more resilient, it's it's it comes from the story that we've created about the event. you know Something has happened, the way we understand what has happened and the way we evaluate what has happened to us can create, that kind of emotional response really influences our healing, our recovery. And um, and if the story, if the interpretation, if the meaning is is not very helpful, it can keep us in a loop of of sorrow, of anger, of, grief, of helplessness, powerlessness. So some stories, can we can be forming them depending on the patterns that we exhibit, but it's possible for us to change that story, and it's possible for us to recreate the story. Now, we also know that the brain is a machine that likes to make meaning of everything because the brain dislikes uncertainty. When something unexpected happens, the brain immediately gets into trying to find out what's the meaning behind this. So it'll really try its best to answer questions like, why did this happen? What does this mean? What does it say about me? What should I expect in the future? And this happens so quickly that we often misinterpret or misunderstand these answers for facts. We also know that the brain would rather have a painful explanation than have no explanation at all. It's really important for the brain to make sense of what's happened. It doesn't do well with uncertainty, it doesn't do well with ambiguity. So, even if what it's quickly thinking and deciphering is landing us into something hurtful, painful, it still prefers that explanation to not knowing. And therefore, this understanding of how the brain is working, it should ideally make us more curious about our first conclusions instead of automatically believing them. We know that, this is how the brain works. And if we know this is how the brain works, we should become better detectives at finding out if what the brain is saying is actually valid or it's just doing, want to do its job quickly and then get over with it. Now, the stories that we are forming and creating out of our experiences can shape our identity or become our identity. Now, say there is a setback. The setback can become as a story, I failed, right? It's a story. Something has happened, I didn't do it properly, I failed. But other times, or if unchecked, the story can also become, I am a failure. Now, there's a big difference between I failed and I'm a failure. The first story describes an event occurred, I failed. The other describes an identity, I am a failure. The same thing can happen with anything. So, say in the context of relationships, what is the story? As an event, I was rejected. What is the story as an identity? I am unlovable. Again, there's a difference between I was rejected and I am unlovable. We do something that doesn't turn out to be right. Um, as an event, the story would be I made a mistake. As an identity, the story would be I always ruin things. And this is how our temporary experiences can become permanent self beliefs, where we start thinking that because this has happened, I am this. And this is why it's even more important for us to examine our stories and see if we are making any errors in the formation of these stories. Now, we also tend to repeat familiar narratives. We could be doing it even without realizing it. So, say, familiar narrative that could be running in our minds could be this always happens to me. Another very common one is that people can't be trusted. If I make one mistake, everything falls apart. I should have handled this better. I'll never recover from this. And there are hundreds and thousands of, more stories like this. Now, these stories often feel very true because we've repeated them so many times. But repetition is not evidence. So a thought can be very familiar. A belief can be very familiar without it being true, without it being accurate. Right? just because we've experienced something maybe a few times, and we tend to notice it even more, we tend to repeat it in our minds, it does not mean that that is the truth. So while familiar thoughts can appear to be the reality, they could not be the reality. Now, this also tells us that the story is often flexible. And again, it does not mean that, hard things haven't happened, painful things haven't happened. Some experiences can be genuinely heartbreaking and can be genuinely challenging, very difficult to go through. So when we speak of recovery, when we speak of meaning making or healing, it does not require us to deny reality. We are not telling ourselves that it hasn't been hard and why can't I just move on from it? Or we are not saying that, we are not feeling grief, or we are spending too much time feeling sad. Objectively, also, things can be challenging. However, for recovery or for healing, we need to separate what happened from what the conclusion I am drawing because it happened. So, for example, a fact could be that a relationship has ended, right? That's a fact. This relationship, for whatever reason, has ended. That's a fact. The story can be, I'll always be alone, or I'm going to be alone all my life. A fact could be that I did not get the promotion, but the story that we are forming could be, I'm not good enough. So when we separate facts from our interpretations, we create space for new possibilities. And not only that, we are not suffering then on account of the story. We are suffering only on account of the event. I didn't get the promotion is a very different kind of challenge from I am not good enough, or a relationship has ended probably is a much in comparison, easier to get through than the belief that I'm going to be alone all my life. So while some pain, some difficulty, grief can be inevitable, the story can be flexible. And we can, consciously create helpful stories. Now, if we look back at, say, something very difficult that happened, say, a decade ago, 10 years ago, and if you can at this time, bring something to mind that happened long back. Now, at that time, it may have felt devastating, something really big, something we thought that, was a huge setback. But when you look back at it now, perhaps you can see something that you did not see then. And we also say that, sometimes that, it's a good thing that I did not, stay in that job. Or it's a good thing that that relationship ended. It's a good thing that that happened. Or you could also say that, oh, I learned so much courage from that experience. Or, it taught me to have boundaries. It taught me compassion. The event, our memory of it, whatever had happened, is the same. Event did not change, but our understanding has changed. So again, recovery, healing, we can't change the past, and therefore we can't change the event. But when we allow the meaning of the past to evolve, is when we recover from it, or learn from it, or heal from it. And as we've sort of discussed this in the past as well, that we are not really talking about positive thinking. We are not trying to replace every negative thought with a positive one. That's not the goal. The goal only is honesty. So I'm not even saying that we should say everything happens for a reason or everything is for my good or, something good comes out of every experience. Not even going that far. Maybe just saying, for now, I don't fully understand this. Maybe I can see it differently in some time instead of saying this ruined my life, you know? So again, like this ruined my life can be reframed as this changed my life and I'm still discovering what it means or what it will mean to me in the future. We are trying to come to balanced thinking, and balanced thinking is often more powerful than forced optimism. We are not forcing optimism. We're just trying to bring the mind to a place where it's not thinking in extremes. It's not thinking that everything is off, everything is ruined, nothing in my life will ever work out again. I am a failure. I can never do anything right. I'm going to die alone. That's extreme negative thinking. A more balanced approach is when we say that, okay, this is difficult, right now is difficult. Maybe I will soon figure out what this is about, or I will recover from this in due course, in due time. So we are just trying to make the brain believe with what is true, which is that it does not know everything right now, but we have the confidence to sail through this, and soon we will be able to understand um the meaning of this. Now, there's a gift, perhaps, that self awareness gives us. It helps us recognize the fact that while we cannot, change the past, edit it, we can, with time, write the story differently, right? So again, if we look back at an experience today, when we think about it, we can give it a different kind of twist, or we can um, also see at what positive changes it has brought to us as people or our lives, and that's what meaning making does. So um to in a way, to recap what we're talking about today and to sum it up, I'd say that we could look at a tough situation, we could look at a difficult experience, and we could believe that because something has happened, there is a finality to it. And there is a finality to how our lives will look going ahead from this situation, and who we've become as a result of this situation or such situations in the past. So we could have extreme negative thinking in sense of um, my life is ruined or I am a failure, and different versions of it, both leaving no hope for us and leaving no room for growth in our lives and in our minds. However, when we reframe the narrative, and sometimes a friend, if we are struggling with forming a narrative, maybe a friend can help us. Somebody who's more, say, compassionate, maybe somebody who you can trust, somebody who is detached from the experience can help you see a different side of the story. So, if you're struggling with meaning making, you can get help to make meaning from the event or in that context. But meaning making is really important because it shapes the way we process what has happened, and it influences our recovery from the event. Now, um, as say an exercise, what we can do as a tool is that, say, when something upsetting has happened, you could, again, you could divide a page into two columns and write down in one only the facts. So, for example, fact is my friend canceled dinner. She sent a message at 4 p.m. The other side, write down your interpretation of it. She doesn't care about me. I'm not important. I always disappoint people. And then ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support this story? Is there another explanation that is equally possible? So when we get into, say, um, negative thinking or negative meaning making, worst case scenarios, this tool can help us distinguish between fact and story and can introduce at least, some scope for finding another interpretation or another explanation. Now, another thing that you can do for yourself is maybe, you know, tonight or at any point in the day when you have some time, just think of a difficult event from your life, not necessarily the biggest one, but something that was challenging. And first, Tara, you can tell the story exactly as you've told it in the past. And then you can think about, what did this experience teach you? Just that. And what did this experience teach me really helps us expand the perspective of the event and gives us sometimes a more, a bigger picture, a broader view of what happened and what the takeaway for us has been, which we can, sometimes tend to skip. So, yeah, today was about stories and why we create stories. Stories help us, they help us make meaning, they help us survive. But not every story helps us grow. So, we want to look at something in a way that can help us grow. And therefore, the meaning that we create can change our future because it can open in us new perspectives and new ways of looking at the same event. So that was today. Tomorrow is how we can use difficult experience to become a source of, say, strength and purpose, and how we can grow through adversity. So that's that's going to be on Friday. Tomorrow, Dr. Aisha will be conducting the session, daily live, and we'll finish the module on Friday when we talk about growing through adversity. So if you have any questions or anything to share, you could type that in now, or we could have that question. Else, we'll be meeting tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining the session. Sorry, there's a comment. Vinasha is saying, after listening and following these sessions, she's trying to apply it. One person who always says negatives only for me, and I had a different story because of that. I was suffering. So now I take it like she's my critique. I consciously look to her comments, and whatever is the fact, I try to improve, and useless things, I sail through it. Wow, that's great. That's really nice. And um, that's actually such a heartening thing, right? When you can, it's see, Abhilasha, sometimes it can be difficult, to always feel like you're being scrutinized by someone, or you're not liked by someone. But I think what you're saying is also so true, that said, there is so much growth and calmness if we can take what we need from, say, a feedback or a critique and be detached from the rest, and also think that, it is the other person's perspective. I don't have to justify myself if they think that, I should be different. It's how they feel about me. I might not be able to, completely change myself and become another person. So yeah, taking what even you objectively think that you could use to learn from, to grow from, and maintaining that kind of detachment from the rest of it. Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone for being here and for sharing your beautiful experiences. I'll be back on Friday. IT Champions Daily Live will be on tomorrow. And look forward to having you all there. Have a good day. Have a good evening, wherever you are. Thank you, Abhilasha. Thank you. And